Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1974. We're going to be taking a look at Linda Ronstadt singing and playing at the same time. She's going to be playing through her version of It Doesn't Matter Anymore. So let's get Linda up on screen and see how she gets on.
A song from the days of panty girdles. There you go, baby. You left me here so I could sit and cry. Golly gee, what have you done to me? Well, I guess it doesn't matter anymore. Do you remember, baby, last September, how you held me tight each and every night? Oh, baby, how you drove me crazy, but I guess it doesn't matter anymore. There's no use in me crying. Done everything now, I'm sick of trying. I've thrown away my nights, wasted all my days over you. Well, you go your way, baby, I'm going mine. Now I'm forever till the end of time, and I'll find somebody new, baby. We'll say we're through, and you won't matter anymore.
I'm just going to jump in here. This is such a subtle arrangement that we have live, and it's always going to be difficult to concentrate on the guitar playing when you've got someone like Linda supplying that vocal, because you just want to listen to that cherry on top of the cake the whole time. And this performance is related to another video that I did, which was with her good friend Dolly Parton. And looking at the guitar playing of the artists around at the time, especially singer-songwriters and country artists, sometimes their guitar playing flew under the radar because of their ability vocally. And Linda was one of those who I featured first of all, just mentioning that she was singing and not that she played guitar as well. So I had to do this video just to get her playing ability up on screen so that we can break it down and have a little look at some of the things that she's doing on that fretboard. This was originally a Buddy Holly song. He released it in 1959. He recorded it in 1958, and it was Paul Anka that actually wrote it. And that was unfortunately released after Buddy Holly's death. And Buddy Holly's here on this channel as well, if you want to check out his video. It was Linda's own interpretation of the track and totally different to the Buddy Holly track. If you want to have a listen to those two, you can do on this particular video. It does have that first Buddy Holly version followed by this, so I will put the link to this video in the description below so you can check out the two versions. By the way, if you do want more background on Linda, I always do that on the first video that I have of an artist on this channel, so you can check out that video if you want that career summary almost of what Linda has done, some of the things that she's achieved. Just to bring up a fact in general about the times in the 1960s, 1970s, we have performers like Linda who have a great voice, a standalone voice that if they wanted to, they can just stand out the front of the stage and wow everybody in the audience with their vocal cords. but they all spent time learning how to play an instrument as well. And that goes for Emmylou Harris and also Dolly Parton, who I mentioned before. And those three together, we all know how well they got on and how their voices harmonized with each other. But that's, again, the background you can find in the other video. So Linda starts this track off with fingerstyle playing with the right hand. Also, we've got a G shape here. She also changes to a D. We've got some other chords thrown in there, but for the most part, we're going to be playing with the right hand a sequence that has more of a counter melody rather than what I'd call a running bass line, because those notes aren't particularly bassy, because we're just going from the E string over to the D string and also the G. And what you'll find is that if you do play fingerstyle yourself, generally once you start pushing the boundaries in terms of the sequences on the right hand, that thumb will be looking after your low 3 strings in terms of talking in pitch. So our low E, A, and D is going to be the thumb that takes care of that. And then the G, the B, and the high E is going to be taken care of by the first, second, and third finger in that order. So it means that if you are doing a running bass line, those top 3 strings have always got a finger that is attributed to those strings. So you can play sequences a lot faster than if you had to move your thumb and your fingers between 2 or 3 strings. So the first thing to point out is that Linda moves that thumb down to the G on some occasions, which means that she's using just her first finger to pick that other string, the other part of the melody. And the second finger and third finger are being used as an anchor on the guitar just to make sure she maintains that solid position so that she can pick the strings that she wants. So by using this thumb and first finger in order to do all of the picking in this track, by no means indicates that Linda hasn't spent a lot of time practicing. It takes a hell of a lot of practice in order to pick out the strings consistently every time. You've got to have your position that might be anchored on the guitar really nice and solid so you can get that consistency with your picking. There's no way that you'd start a track just playing acoustic guitar unaccompanied if you hadn't have logged in your hours of practice in order to get it subconscious, but also to then be able to supply a vocal over the top. I always say that singing and playing at the same time doubles the difficulty, and it's making all of that playing that initially would have been fully conscious. You'd have to think about it the whole time in order to play it accurately. To get all of that playing and the sequences, the little pull-offs that we have with the left hand, then being able to sing, all of that playing has now got to be subconscious. You've got to get to such a level of mastery to make that subconscious. It's not like the first time you learn a song, you can instantly sing over the top of it and your hands will magically do it. It takes a hell of a lot of reinforcement of that muscle memory in order to make it subconscious. We've also got the capo on the 7th fret here, which, if you don't know what a capo is, it's basically bringing the bottom of the guitar all the way up. So you place that capo to where you want the pitch to be in order then to sing. So it's very much something that you can use to get the right pitch and the right key for your vocals, but also it opens you up to using open chords and throwing in fills that are easier to do in these open chord shapes, such as the G and the D that Linda's playing here. The other thing is that a lot of players go to the use of capos when they can't do a bar chord, and you'll notice that a bar chord is when you get your first finger and you put it all the way across the guitar like a capo. So that is why some people rely on capos, because they can't do those bar chords. But interestingly, Linda does throw in a major bar chord in this progression that we're playing, so she's got the ability to throw in those bar chords if she wants to. So this placing of the capo is just so she can do this melody line with the fingerstyle, and it isn't because her guitar ability level is underneath that of playing bar chords. We've also got the technique of string skipping here, which is exactly how it sounds. So it means Linda's taking that thumb, picking that E string with that thumb, but then skipping all the way down to the D string, and like I said, also all the way down to the G. So it means that she's covering quite a distance with that thumb, and if she wasn't totally used to that change, she would be wildly inaccurate with that picking and maybe accidentally catch the A string when she doesn't mean to. So with that combination of anchoring, but also hours and hours every day of repetition and playing through this particular progression, it means that live she can not only get that string skipping down really accurately without making a mistake, but it's also subconscious. I just quickly want to mention as well the pedal steel guitar solo that we've just had, because something that I mention on other songs and particularly ballads is when the tempo of the track is slower and it is more of an emotional song, something like a ballad, you want your vibrato to try and match the mood, and we certainly have that here on this pedal steel guitar solo because it's nice and slow and the slides are so deliberate into a really deliberate, slow, wide vibrato. So it's a great solo that just suits the track so well. But let's finish off watching the performance.
There's no use in me crying. I've done everything I'm sick of trying. I've thrown away my nights, wasted all my days over you. Well, you go your way, baby, and I'll go mine. Now and forever till the end of time. Somebody new, baby, we'll say we're through, and you won't matter anymore. No, you won't matter anymore. You won't matter anymore.
And there we have it. That little progression that we've got going on means that sometimes you'll see Linda's first finger pointing out almost into the crowd, and anybody that has played with a capo will know that when you are playing that G chord position, in order to get that progression that Linda's throwing together, she's playing it with the third finger on the G and then the little finger on the G on the high E string, which means that the first finger you've got to kind of get out of the way of the capo in order to make those positions possible. So if you're looking at that first finger and wonder why it's pointing out, it's just getting out the way of that capo. And something that I just want to draw your attention to, when we resumed the video, Linda changed to the G chord and she was ever so slightly off, and she could tell that she was off because of that kinesthetic feedback. I don't want to get too technical with it, but basically meaning you can feel on your finger that you are just slightly out of position. So she had a quick look down at the guitar and just shifted that third finger more towards the center between those two frets. And it's one of those things that to another player, someone less experienced, that would throw you off, and it would certainly put you off your playing and your singing. But Linda has obviously practiced and is seasoned at playing and singing at the same time. And also just having that awareness to know the chord isn't quite there and just adjust it as you are singing and still playing. It's one of those things that when you've been playing for a long time, you don't have to look at the guitar with your chord shapes because you can feel when you're in the correct place. And sometimes you can feel when you are leaning on a string, and if you are going through a particular picking sequence with the right hand and you can feel that your third finger might be resting on that high E string, before you get to that top part of the sequence, you can just adjust that third finger and move it whilst you're playing and whilst you're singing. But all of those things put together takes a hell of a lot of practice. So this might fly under the radar how much Linda has played guitar and worked at her techniques in order to get to this level. When Linda released her version of this track, it got to number 47 in the US charts. And I just want to mention a fact about Paul Anka, the original writer of this song, because, like I said, unfortunately it had to be released posthumously for Buddy Holly, but all of those composer royalties that Paul would have received, he donated to Buddy's wife at the time, who was Maria Elena Holly, and the track has been covered many times, and Paul said it was the least that he could do, so the rights to this song belong to Maria, and it's been covered many times, like I said, and also Mark Williams had a number 1 with this song in New Zealand. So Linda Ronstadt, one of those artists whose voice set her apart from other artists at the time, but also had the ability to accompany herself on the guitar and not just strumming out chords here, fingerstyle sequences that are going on with the thumb of the first finger, and it's all subconscious to do it at the same time as singing. Exactly the same as her friends Dolly and Emmy Lou, and when they teamed up, they brought together so much musicality and artistry that's why they did so well with the work that they did on Trio and Trio 2. But like I said, I do have videos on those 3 ladies independently if you want to check them out individually. And with Linda, I do have a video on her focusing on her vocals, because it is so difficult to not focus on those vocals because she has such a great voice. But thank you guys so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!